explain them. I'm like, yeah, that's really not worth it. Mhm. And here we go. Okay. So yesterday, can somebody that actually came to class tell me what we did yesterday?
We read the Singing Man text. Well, some of it, not all of it.
Okay, so we started a new text called The Singing Man yesterday, right? We didn't read it all. We're kind of in the middle of it. And what kinds of things are we focusing on? Who remembers that? Haley?
Well, the singing man wants to be a singer, and he wants to be able to he meets this blind man, and then they become friends, and that's where we stop.
Okay, so when you said that he wants to be a singer, what's the big deal about that? And first of all, who could tell me other than Haley, who could tell us what the setting of the story was or is? Setting is time and place. Where does this story take place?
Isn't it in
It was really hard to pronounce.
West Africa.
West Africa, very good. Okay, so what's the big deal about him wanting to be a musician? What's the big deal about that? What happens?
The elders don't like that.
The elders of the village don't like that. So what happens to him?
He got kicked out because he didn't want to obey the elders.
Okay, so I'm not sure that he actually gets kicked out, but they give him a choice. They're like, you can't be a musician. It doesn't help anybody, right? But he decides to leave. And then like Haley said, he meets another musician, right? And he sort of learns from this musician, and that's kind of where we left off, right? Okay. Does anybody remember what I said we were going to be focusing on as we read? There were two things because there's going to be a couple of different activities that we're going to do. Does anybody remember what we talked about?
Character traits.
Okay, character traits. Very good. So okay, hold on. Let's just talk about character traits for a second. So character traits are personality traits, and I'm going to show you something to do with that in a second. And then what was the other thing that we're going to try to focus on? Who remembers? I thought I heard somebody in Zoom land saying something. Because you're going to have to do some writing with this. So who remembers?
Personality?
Well, that's character traits, but there was something else we talked about.
Making connections to the text.
Thank you, Paige. When you make connections to the text, so you take something that you're reading and you try to connect it to something you already know. And I gave you 3 different types of text connections. Does anybody remember any of them? Devin?
Text to text.
Text to world, and I think Bella say text to text, and what was the other one?
Text to self.
Text to yourself, right? So what happens is when you're reading, you should be thinking about what you're reading and not just letting words fly by, right? You should be thinking about it. And one way to think about it is to make connections to the text. And you can make connections to another text that you know, that you've read. And a text could be a movie or a TV show too, because somebody had to write the TV show or the movie. They had to write the script for that. And then you might be able to connect something to your own life, yourself, or you might be able to connect something to the big wide world. And Bella, I used your example yesterday when we talked about text to world, because you said the book you're reading has a pandemic in it. And I use that because we all can relate to that, right? If we were all reading a book about a pandemic, we would all have probably some sort of similar experience in the last year when we've been living through a worldwide pandemic, right? Unfortunately. Okay, so there's that. I do want to point out, if you look at my screen, I do want to point out to you, hold on. Thank you, Skylar, for that information. Okay. I do want to point out that I have listed in Classroom or posted in Classroom material for character trait lists. So I'm just going to open this up and I posted it as material. And this is just how, I really liked this one and I didn't copy the entire thing because it was kind of a pain in the neck. But this character trait list gives you synonyms, and synonyms are words that have similar meanings. And so up here, this first group is synonyms for nice. You know how kids always say, oh, he's nice. And I would say, what does that mean? You know, other words for that: helpful, friendly, kind-hearted, compassionate, pleasant, thoughtful, agreeable, courteous. Other words for mean: wicked, rude, thoughtless, impolite, cruel, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's this whole list here for you to refer to when we get to doing character traits. And then, just like in the classroom, those of you, well, all of you that are hybrid students, hi Caden, you know, you see the character trait list that I have posted in the classroom. A lot of kids this year don't ever see that. So here's a list of 84 positive character traits: active, admirable, agreeable. They are in alphabetical order. And then underneath that, and I had to post it this way because it wasn't working the way I wanted to post it. And then you have some what we call negative character traits: aggressive, angry, anxious, argumentative, arrogant, bored, bossy, blah, 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 blah. Somebody told me I was strict yesterday and thought that was negative, but you know, I don't think that's negative because I'm a teacher. Ah, all right, so that is there for you to use. Okay, I think that's a pretty good resource. So what I need everybody to do is go to Classroom, and I need you to open up the Singing Man text. Oh wait, well, let's look at the bulletin board first, because I just want to remind people again that they should be looking at this every
I've
day.
been looking at that every day now.
That's good, because that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, so what are we doing today? We'll be reading a story called The Singing Man, and then doing some activities with the story. It's a story I think you'll enjoy. What kind of activities? Character traits and making connections. And then over here, oh, check your deadline. Any work starting from February 2nd is third quarter. The end of the first 5 weeks of third quarter is Friday, March 5th. And like I said yesterday, if you were paying attention, I have seen more zeros in this year alone than I have in my 20 years of teaching combined. Well, this is my 21st year. So yeah, 20 years worth of zeros all in 1 year is a little hard to take. Again, back to our conversation before the Zoom meeting, kids earn grades. Teachers don't give grades, you earn them. And if you earn a 0, that's what you earn, right? Okay, so if you could go back to Classroom and open up the Singing Man text, which should be the third thing down on the screen. And I will open mine up over here, because I think I had some notes. When you open it in Cami. So this way, if you want to take notes or jot anything down, you can do that. So you might have to split your screen for a while, because I do stop in this story and talk quite a bit. Does anybody remember the character Sholo, the other musician, the blind man? Does anybody remember what he was called? Like, he was a musician, but does anybody remember what he was called in addition to that?
Like his name?
Well, Sholo, yes. No, he was called a praise musician.
Oh, yes, a
or
praise
singer,
singer.
right? And that's kind of an important thing, because we left off, let's see, if it doesn't have a page number, let me see if I could get you. Okay, so if you scroll down, guys, and the page numbers, on some of the pages, it's got numbers on the bottom left or right-hand corner. If you go to 272 and then keep scrolling, and then there's beautiful illustration of Sholo playing the drum, an omele drum, and then the following page, that's where we finished reading at the bottom of that page. So it's like a half a page of text, and then they're laying out some sleeping mats on the ground.
Mhm.
And when last we left, Sholo says to Banzar, he says, "We are the keepers of the past." Sholo told Banzar, "A people without a past have no future." Okay, so their job is really kind of an important one, because they go from town to town and they sing the history of the people. And that's kind of an important thing. Okay, is there anybody that is not on this page yet? Okay, so we're going to keep continuing down. So obviously, if you did not attend the Zoom or come to class yesterday for whatever your reasons were, you're going to have to go back at some point today and read the beginning of the story, because I'm not going backwards. Okay, so I am on this page where Banzar's illustration playing the flute. Looks like he's standing on a rock. Okay, everybody with me? All right, here we go. As the years went by, Banzar grew taller and stronger, but Sholo grew older and more feeble. Does anybody know what the word feeble means?
Weak.
Haley? I don't know what you said. Yeah, weak. He becomes more weak. So you might want to make yourself a note of that, like I am. I really should have used a text box. You might want to make yourself a note of that, like I am. So when I say that as a suggestion, I'm not really suggesting it. That's basically Mrs. Joe's way of saying do that. If I write it down, you write it down. Okay, for a long time, Banzar stopped playing his flute. Oh, wait a minute, I lost something there. Something kind of important, but Cholo grew older and more feeble. It took longer and longer for them to travel from village to village. And then one day, Cholo died. I don't know. For a long time, Banzar stopped playing his flute. He sat by the river for hours, gently tapping Cholo's omele drum and thinking about his friend. He remembered Cholo's words. I alone know the history of our people, Banzar thought to himself. I must tell them about the past so they will be strong in the future. I know that this is what Cholo would want me to do. Okay, so remember yesterday we were talking about connections and how important that is. Can anybody make a connection to the text here with anything that they may have experienced in their life? So what just happened in the text?
He lost someone.
He lost someone. Okay. Has anybody ever had that experience?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, we all kind of do, right? Like if you know what it's like to love and care for someone and have someone as a companion in your life, and then when they pass away, there is like this empty void inside of you, right? So that's something I think that most people, unfortunately, can make a connection to. So that's something that you might want to think about when you go to do that activity. That would be one spot in the story I think lots of people can connect to and know what he's feeling. You know, he stops playing his flute. He loves playing his flute. His flute gives him comfort, and he's not even able to do that, right? That shows you how sad he is. Okay. So the next paragraph starts with suddenly. Oh, here's where we need some class participation on this one. Oh, yay. Suddenly, Banzar felt better. He lifted his flute to his lips and played song after song. He pounded out the pum pum balumbo. That's the participation part. Everybody go pum pum balumbo.
Pum pum balumbo.
The pum pum balumbo beat on the omele drum. He made up a song about Cholo and his wisdom. Then Banzar, the praise singer, picked up his instrument and traveled to the nearest town. Banzar became very famous. When he entered a village, the children would clap their hands and shout, "The singing man has come, the singing man has come." The children would dance before Banzar all the way to the house of the chief. So when kids, what is that? Does that remind you, or can you connect that to anybody? Like I get a visual in my head.
I have like once you said that, it, like the British are coming, just ran and
Okay, that's not what I was going for, but yeah, I can see that repeating line there. Yeah. Does it remind you of anything when someone's playing music or people are playing music and other people follow them? Does that remind anybody of anything? Connect to anything? Huh?
a march.
I don't know what you said. Who's Travis Scott? People follow him whenever they see him? Okay, all right. Anything else? I was thinking more of like a parade, right? And normally in normal
Like a
times,
band,
Loversville has parades. What?
like a band, like our the band for middle school did. Well,
Yeah, like in middle school, you have a band, and in high school, you have a band, and sometimes you go out, and if you're in the marching band, you go out and there's a parade and people are there. They might not follow you because people usually line up for the parade, but it's kind of reminds me of a parade. That's a connection that you can make, right? You should get a visual there. All right, so next paragraph. Now we're going to need some participation here. Now Banzar was the one who squatted down in front of the chief's door. He beat the wild, go ahead.
Pum pum bum lumbo. Pum pum bum lum bum.
sound on the drum in the same way Sholo had for many years. Benzar made a very good living as a praise singer. He was lonely. He missed Sholo. He thought often about his mother and father and his brothers Swanga and Taki. He wondered if he would ever see his family again. One day, Banzar's travels brought him to the city of Lagos. The feast of Igodo, the yam festival celebration, had begun. Where have we seen the word Lagos before? What do we know from this story about Lagos?
Isn't that the town where he grew up?
That is the town where he grew up, right? So do you think he's going to, like, could you make a prediction?
He's gonna see his family.
Maybe he'll see his family. All right, let's see what happens. So anyway, this feast of Agodo, the yam festival celebration, everyone was rejoicing that the harvest season was over with music, feasting, and dancing. Now, we don't feast and dance. Maybe we play music. Maybe some of us do. I mean, we do feast. But what's our harvest festival? Not Christmas, Thanksgiving, right? So there's another connection, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All the praise singers had been invited to attend. One by one, they played the omele drums and sang their songs for the king of Lagos. Each was given a small reward. Finally, it was Banzar's turn. He pounded out the wild, go ahead.
Pum bum lumbo. Pum pum bum lum bum.
Beat on his drum. He sang the songs of ancient Africa and the new songs he'd written about the king's wisdom, kindness, and bravery. Then Banzar began to play his flute. He played the beautiful melodies that were taught him by the birds in the jungle. He trilled the secrets the wind whispered to the trees. He ended with a song the river sings on its journey to the sea. When he finished playing, the king of Lagos beckoned him to come near. Where did you learn our history and to sing and play like that? He asked. From Sholo, who is now dead, said Banzar. Of all the musicians I have heard, you have the greatest gift, said the king. If you will remain in Lagos as my personal musician, you will be handsomely rewarded. When he says handsomely rewarded, how is he going to get rewarded?
Half.
With that money.
What?
Money.
Well, money, or he's going to be well rewarded, right? His life
Yeah.
will be good. Yeah. And here Banzar is in his nice outfit. I love the illustrations in this. Hi, Ms. Terplak. I would be honored, said Banzar. The king gave Banzar a house, money, and servants. Banzar wore robes made of rich material and a special golden necklace. He became a very special man in Lagos. One day, when Banzar was in the marketplace, he saw his brothers, Swanga and Taki. He greeted them, but they did not recognize him. How are your crops, friend? Asked Banzar. There has been a great famine in our land, said Swanga. My fields barely yield anything to eat. So that's your context clue. What's the word famine mean? Famine. So let me read again. There has been a great famine in our land, said Swanga. My
Oh,
fields barely yield anything to eat. So what do you think famine means?
No.
Kind of a loss. Somebody else said something on Zoom that I didn't hear.
Barely anything.
Barely anything, right? So if there's a famine, it means that nothing is being produced and there's not a lot of food, okay? So the farmer brother, right, is struggling because he's not able to grow crops. And then Banzar says, how is your trade? Banzar asked Taki. I have no money to buy iron, said Taki sadly. Therefore, I have nothing to make or to sell. Are your parents well? Asked Banzar. They live as well as can be expected in these hard times, said Swanga. And here they are talking at the marketplace. Well, they haven't seen him in many, many years. You will not look the same in 30 years that you look now. You will look different. Okay. I don't know. I would think you would be able to recognize your own brother, but you know, it's a story. It's a good question. Have you any brothers? Asked Banzar. Our younger brother has been gone these many years, said Taki. He would not work and desired only to play his flute. Can music make your fortune? So he went away. I would like to visit with you at your home, said Banzar. Tell your parents and your chief that the king's musician is coming. Swanga and Taki left quickly to spread the news. Banzar put on his finest robe. He filled his bags with food, gifts, and money and called his servants. They went before Banzar into the village of his boyhood, beating drums and gongs and calling out, "Make way for the musician of the king of Lagos." The procession stopped in front of the home of the village chief. The villagers gathered around Banzar. He sang song after song and beat out the wild.
Pum pum ba lumbo. Pum pum ba lumbo.
Thank goodness for you, Bella, because you're the only one left doing that. Thank you.
It's fun.
No, he beat out the rhythm on his omele drum. The people clapped and clapped. As the night drew near, Banzar saw his father, mother, and 2 brothers on the edge of the crowd. He took out his flute and stood before them. Then he played a few sad notes and sang. A man and a woman had 3 fine sons. When the first son became... Pardon? No, I'm not singing this. A man and a woman had 3 fine sons. When the first son became a man, his desire was to till the land, to be a farmer. When the second son became a man, his desire was to make things of iron, to be a blacksmith. When the third son became a man, his desire was to become a musician. And the first son was honored, and the second son was praised. But the third son was cast out from his family to wander for the rest of his days. And here's the procession, like the parade. And here he is probably singing. "Oh," said Banzar's father, "this song is just like the thing that happened to us. Our third son wanted to be a musician. He has been gone these many years and by now is probably dead." "No, my father, he lives," said Banzar. "I am he." Then Banzar and his family rejoiced. Banzar ordered his servants to prepare a feast. For many days, the village celebrated his good fortune. Banzar gave money and gifts to his family and the chief of the village. Then Banzar, the third son who became the king's musician, returned to the city of Lagos. Singing and dancing, his servants led the way. Now, here is a new saying: yams fill the belly and trade fill the pockets, but music fills the heart. Okay, so that's the end of the story. Now, I just want to point this quote out because, by the end of the week, this is going to be an assignment. You know, your quote papers, I'm going to give you this quote right here to write about. So let's talk about what that means. Yams fill the belly. What does that mean?
Fills the stomach, yeah.
Right, so you need farmers to fill your belly, right? You need
Trade fills the
you need to have
pocket.
food. Trade fills your pocket, so that's talking about
money.
which brother?
One brother who wanted to be a
The
blacksmith.
second one.
The second one who became the blacksmith, right? And then, but it says music fills your heart. So remember the beginning of the story, those of you that were here yesterday, I asked, do you think music is important to us as human beings? What are you moving around on your screen so much? Tell me, because I asked you a question. Oh, okay. So, you know, I think by the end of the story, one of the messages we should get, right? One of the themes is that music is important to us as human beings. Is there any irony in this story? Kind of. Let's talk about what irony means first, because we might not remember. Does anybody remember what irony means? Devin? Nope, that's not irony. That's hyperbole. So irony is when there is a twist in the story or an unexpected ending. So what's the irony in this story? Haley? How is that ironic? No, that's not irony. That's part of dying is part of life, isn't it? Isn't it? You expect old people to die
I have one.
eventually. Okay, who's talking to me from Zoomland?
Bella.
Go ahead, Bella.
Banzar became rich and the king's what's his face? Sargos, Lagos's musician, and then he rejoined his family with his family.
But what's the irony there? Devin, what were you gonna say?
He like basically rich.
Okay, let Devin speak. Go ahead. His family kicked him out. What else? But how does he come back? Okay, so you have to think about the whole story. from the beginning to the end, right? So in the beginning, the two brothers that wanted to be the farmer and the blacksmith, they were honored and praised, just like in Banzar's story, right? Right? Okay, in his song rather. And then the brother that wants to be a musician, they don't, the people say, oh, you can't do that. There's no value in that. When he finds his brothers at the marketplace, are they doing well as far as
No.
being prosperous and
No.
successful? No,
Not
they
at
are
all.
not. Who's doing well?
Banzar.
Yeah, so there's the irony, right? There's the irony. Okay, so let's take a look how much time we have. 32. We got about 8 minutes, so we could look at the next thing. All right, so let's go back to keep this open in your tab, and then let's go back to classroom. I think it'll be easier to go to classwork at this point. And there is a new topic called Singing Man, so go there. Oh, guess what? I haven't posted it yet. Thomas Jost. All right, give me 2 seconds and I will take care of that. Hold on. Let me try that again. Hold on. You could watch what I have to do when I post stuff. Aren't you lucky? Not really. All right. I didn't think we'd get this far today. We moved along nicely, so that's good. All right, Banzar traits. We'll do the traits first. We will give a copy to each kid. We'll title this Banzar traits. And we'll put it for all my classes. Yay. And then we'll put a due date of what's today? When today's this? We'll put it for Thursday. We'll put it under Singing Man. And we'll assign it. Bingo, bango, boingo. See all the work I have to do just to give you one assignment? Okay, so when that posts for you, could you open up your document, please?
Banzar rates, right?
Say what? Okay, Belle, I can't really understand you. So move your mic away from your mouth, I think, maybe. Okay. Oh my goodness.
It's called
Well, if you go to the stream or if you go to Singing Man in classwork, it's called Banzar Traits. And then open it up
okay.
and it looks like this. Anybody not there yet? Okay, so let's take a look at what you have to do. And I'll give you class time tomorrow to work on this, okay? So this says the Singing Man. Select 2 character traits that you think best describes the character Banzar. For each trait, copy a quote from the text to prove the trait you have chosen. Fill in the graphic organizer below with your choice. So in the top box, you're gonna use a trait. And remember, I gave you that whole big list of character traits, right? And we could talk about what kind of traits we could use here. And then underneath that trait, you're going to go to the text and you're going to copy word for word. You're going to quote the text to prove that he is that trait. If you're saying he's happy in this box here, then down here, you're going to go and find me a quote from the text and give me the quote and the page number. And then you're going to do it again for a different trait. Okay. It doesn't have to be positive and negative. It just has to be 2 different traits. Okay. And then you're going to go and find a quote from the text. Questions about that part? Okay. So then it says below, explain how these traits help Banzar achieve his goals. Be sure to write and complete sentences. I'm not necessarily looking for a paragraph. I just want you to explain how the traits he has and you picked help him achieve his goal of being a musician. So let's talk about the character for a minute. What traits could we possibly give this character?
Kind-hearted.
He's kind-hearted. What makes you say that?
Because even after everything that he went through with his family, he gave them food and money and gifts at the end.
Okay, so even after his family sort of, like, his family doesn't really push him out. It's just the circumstance, right? Because they have to abide by the elders. So he chooses, but he's kind-hearted because when he sees there's a need, he helps them because he has more to give. What else would you?
Right?
What makes you say he's brave? I would agree.
Because when he left, he didn't give up and he was brave enough to go out to the world and try to do something.
Okay, so it takes some amount of bravery to go off by yourself as a young person, right? Without any kind of income or family around you or not knowing anybody, right? And I think the fact that he's brave brought him to all the different places around and he learned his, because I think musicians are a trade as well, but he learned his skill, right? And then he became very successful. So do you understand what you have to do here? Are there any questions? For those of you that were not in Zoom or in class yesterday and you did not read the first part of the story with us, you need to go back and read the first part of the story first. The rest of you can get started on the character traits. And don't forget, you also in classroom on the stream, there is that whole big long list of character traits that I showed you earlier that you can refer to. Okay, so the first part is synonyms for different ones, and then there's positive and negative traits as well.
So we are working on that tomorrow.
Well, you have about 3 or 4 minutes, I think, today to get started, and then tomorrow as well, yes.
Okay.
Okay? So I am actually going to stop recording.